Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Henrique, and I'm one of the co-founders at Inspira. And today I want to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about how Brazil is drowning in legal bureaucracy. And
Cara, boa sorte,
the first
parabéns.
thing that I want to mention is Inspira's mission is to avoid that actually Brazil drowns in that legal bureaucracy. And our personal motive for that is because we worked in the industry and we understand the huge problem it is. So how big is that problem? In Brazil, since 2023, we had over 83.8 million legal claims under trial. If you look at the backlog, that's over 350 million legal claims. On average, companies spend over $25 billion annually on those lawsuits. And to top it all off, over $1.2 trillion are disputed by these corporations in those legal claims. And if we think about it, 70% of our GDP is compromised by that. It's insane, insane. A quick curiosity here, fun fact. On average in the world, countries spend over 0.3% of their GDP into the judicial system. In Brazil, we're at 1.5. So world champions. Yay. Not at all. So how does that translate into lawyers' routine? So 86% of lawyers admit working outside business hours because they're overwhelmed. And if you think about that in Brazil, the legal working hours on a week is 40 hours a week. The studies published that in small, medium-sized firm, lawyer working there can go up to 54 hours a week. And if you go to a big law firm, that number skyrockets to 66 hours a week. What we're talking here is 35 to 65% more hours than what the regulation, what the law says. Shocking, isn't it? What does exactly the lawyer's routine look like? Files, other files, systems not working, copying files, desperation. Oh no, emails coming in, PowerPoint presentations I have to prepare, Microsoft Teams, driving me nuts, Excel sheets, cataloging and labeling information, saving everything, backlogging, and of course, our beloved Microsoft Word for drafting documents, redlining information, and getting the insights that every lawyer needs to know. How do I know this? That's me, right there. My first mugshot here before I entered the legal markets and worked in the industry for the last 7 years. And my routine working in small size firms, big firms, and in-house legal teams were pretty much the same. Long and long and long hours and not getting much done just because I was lost in the middle of, bureaucracies and documents and redlining information and trying to organize everything. And in the end of the day, I spent long and long hours way after what my time was supposed to be. So how do we solve all this? Before November 2022, we had no idea Gen AI was coming to change everything, but it did. And GPT was launched and everybody was shocked. And how does GPT actually, impact the industry in general? And this is where we're talking that artificial intelligence has to equal efficiency. It has to equal automating many, many tasks that we've been facing in the legal industry that previously was done by lawyers and now can be performed by artificial intelligence. Let's look at the top 3 activities that lawyers perform on a daily basis. Precedent research, which is case law. Case law findings, relevant information to sustain arguments for lawyers using both in legal claims as well as consultancy. Next one, legal drafting. So how many hours and hours and hours do lawyers spend drafting those documents and reviewing and sending to the counterparty and going through all that set of motion over and over again. And finally, contract review and analysis. How much of that activity can actually be improved, can actually be enhanced? And in the end of the day, what we're talking about here is we're thinking 70% is that bullseye here. So the top 3 activities are going to be hugely impacted by Gen AI. And how does that actually impact their lawyers' working hours and daily activities? The expectation is that almost 91% of the legal firms and corporations interviewed for this study saying that 91% expect headcount efficiency to increase, meaning people spending less time during those time-consuming tasks with low aggregated value in order to perform better and deliver the most. There's a second study here that we found that said 74% of the billable hours that law firms usually charge the firms will be impacted by Gen AI. Let's put these 2 things in touch. So we're saying that the top 3 activities that lawyers perform on a daily basis are going to be impacted by Gen AI. And that 74% of those activities, those billable hours, are as well being impacted by Gen AI. So what now? How do we move past this, and how do we implement that technology into our daily routines? We've come across this chart, and it's very enlightening. So first off, we go to the first wave of Gen AI implementation. So what does this first wave mean? This is where companies and people were actually experimenting with these Gen AI solutions. So they're trying to figure out, okay, so how does that actually help me? How does that save me hours? And how does that give me back my time? And this is where summarizing information, going through documents, and comparing information is the case study. Once we do go through that experimentation phase, we move on to the second wave. So the second wave is where we actually understand how Gen AI is impacting and how we actually put that into our routines and make it better. And when to think about that is, what are the jobs and tasks that will be substituted that were previously performed by those lawyers that now can be performed by the technology? And here we can go through redlining information in a document, summarizing information in a long set of documents, for example, in a due diligence scenario, let's say. And finally, tech is going to become a leveler. This is where smaller law firms are going to have access to the same technology, the same information that bigger law firms have. And this is where the market is going to level up. And this is very interesting because we see in Brazil the tendency, the trend, to see the marketing fragmenting itself. So instead of going to these price wars among law firms, we're going to see smaller firms opening their own activities, own set of business, and then using these technologies to level up the markets and be able to compete out there. Once we mature from that second wave to the third wave, we're going to go to the agentic stage. We've seen a couple of talks here as well about the agentic stage. And as a law firm, it's really important for these agents to be overseen by lawyers. So in the end of the day, even though we do have the opportunity to implement those agents in a daily routine, it's obvious that having a lawyer overseeing the whole thing is more than necessary. Everything I've said comes down to this. So what do lawyers actually want from using AI and spending less time during time-consuming tasks? Work-life balance. This is the main message here that I wanted to share with you guys, which is, how do we use technology? How do we leverage that to give people back their time? And in the end of the day, this is the richest purpose one could have to building a solution. Having spent so much time in the industry and understanding those pains myself, my co-founders as well, for us it's absolutely necessary, absolutely mandatory that we think about how do we actually improve people's lives. And if you think about the second and third and fourth and fifth topic here, all of them are talking about the same thing. How do I actually spend my time better? I have 1 minute left. Key takeaways here, super quickly. First one, AI is already switching the rules of the game. So companies might as well hurry up and figure out how to follow that lead. Adaptability is key, both in the side of how firms actually charge their clients and how do they actually perform their daily routine. Number two, clients expect firms to adopt AI. So firms, corporations, agnostically here, are expecting law firms to use technology, use AI in their daily routine, and actually perform better and faster. The agentic stage is coming out, and it's coming in hot. Believe me, how many of these tasks can agents perform much better than humans, and we can actually oversee the whole thing and make our lives better. And finally, to top it all off, AI can give lawyers back their time. This is what we're looking for here. This is what AI is capable of doing, and this is where we believe the future is leading us towards in the following years. That impact on legal industry is going to be immense. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good one.